Okay, so welcome to another episode of Amazing Individuals. Today, Kurt and I are so excited to host a brand new episode. And today we will be talking to the CEO of Special Olympics Rhode Island, Ed Pacino. And I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. Hi Ed, welcome to our show.
Hey Lisa, hi Kurt. It's Ed Pacheco. So
Okay, sorry.
Pacheco, there you go. You're close though. It's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, sorry about that.
For all those Chiefs fans out there, they say Pacheco. It's Pacheco though.
I
It's
get
okay.
that. Uh,
All right. Could you tell our listeners why you wanted to get involved with Special Olympics?
That's a great question, Kurt. So I actually spent a good part of the last 9 years before I joined Special Olympics in higher education, and for my career, up until that point, was really focused on education, policy, nonprofit, and government work. And at some point, I think we all arrive in our lives where we decide it's really important to sit down and carve out our priorities as to how we want to spend our time professionally and personally. And so in December of 21, I was one of those people that, COVID gave me a lot of perspective and took the time to, craft out my priorities. And number one on the list is health and family first. Number two is being a part of an organization that's mission I can get really excited about and be passionate on behalf of. And then I knew I wanted to, my wife and I knew we wanted to raise our kids here in Rhode Island. And lastly, I wanted to make sure that we could give back to our fellow Rhode Islanders. Well, it just so happened that through a friend who is in the executive search world reached out to me after I stepped down from my role at the college. Denny DeJesus had announced his retirement from Special Olympics Rhode Island, and very grateful for the work that Denny did during his 13 years here in our state. A mutual friend asked me, would I be interested in Special Olympics? And I said, I'd love to learn more. And maybe a short period after that, I would maybe say a month or two, I found myself at the Northern Area Games at Bryant University and had an opportunity to witness opening ceremonies. And I just remember that moment thinking to myself how awesome it was not only to see the joy on the faces of the athletes, but also their families and thinking how incredible it would be to be a part of that and help to create opportunities for so many people that is made up by this movement. And, the rest is history. May 2022, I accepted the appointment to be president CEO of Rhode Island. And almost 3 years later, here I am. I have the best job in the world.
Oh, that's great. So I've been to Rhode Island a couple of times. My real dad was in the Navy and he did OCS up there. So I've been there a couple of times. So I haven't been
Yeah,
there.
great Navy population here in Rhode Island. We have certainly college and universities here, and we have the Naval War Base right there on a Quinnipiac Island area. So it's a lot of Navy personnel. We're fortunate that quite a few of them actually volunteer at our state summer games.
Oh, that's great.
Mhm.
Oh, could you go-
Yeah. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about what you do as a CEO?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So it's the job changes day to day. And I say that one of the best parts about being the CEO of this organization is at any given moment I could be talking to a major donor, someone who's contributing philanthropically to support the organization, a board member, and or a staff person, and in all those conversations, while somewhat different, are really dedicated to the same goal, which is to advance the mission of Special Olympics Rhode Island and provide exceptional experiences for our athletes. And so a lot of days it's the blocking and tackling of those conversations and relationship management that comes with that. And really what that's focused on, Kurt, is the operations and overall management of the organization, right? It's as a CEO, you somewhat become the conduit. If you look at a wheel and all the spokes, you're at the middle of it, and you've got to be involved in all different facets of the organization. But through empowering others to do the work, and being a support person, both strategically and also in execution or doing the work itself. Um, And basically what that means is, in layman's terms, at any given point, I could be doing a meeting with a board of directors, or I could be the chief bottle washer, meaning you got to get out there and get the equipment, throw it in the trailer, because that's what's needed at that given moment. And that's what I love about this work is I much rather be on the front lines working directly with our athletes, whether it be basketball or bowling or swimming. Even if I don't even know what I'm doing when it comes to the athletic part, I still
Yeah.
want to be a part of it, right? It's hard not to get excited. But certainly the operation side is really important. So I focus on all the above. It's fundraising, it's programming, it's relationship management, and really the day-to-day aspect of the organization.
Well, that's good.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, you've been a part of Special Olympics for what, since how long?
Since 79.
So he's seen like Dave and some other CEOs, so he's kind of dealt with
So
he's
Kurt. Yeah,
I
yeah.
know a lot of people. A
Yeah.
lot.
So, as part of your job, you engage with athlete leaders like ourselves. How does athlete leadership make your program successful? And would you like to see athlete leaders be more involved in meaningful roles? And if so, what would that look like to you?
Well, first off, as I just mentioned, the most exciting part of my job is when I'm on the front lines working with athletes in any particular sport. Equally as exciting is working with our athlete leaders through our Athlete Leadership Council, which what I did when I first arrived here at Special Olympics Rhode Island is I created an organizational chart for visualization purposes to show not only the board and the staff and their respective roles, but I made sure that on that org chart was Athlete Leadership Council. And why that's so important is they are, in my opinion, a key group of strategic advisors for me as president CEO to make sure I can be as effective as possible within my role. And what I mean by that is, hearing from our athletes about how to improve the work that we do is vital to achieving not only achieving our mission but advancing our mission, right? Things change, innovation, technology, expectations, wants, needs, aspirations, and we have to be able to adapt and evolve over time. And one of the ways we can really do that successfully is hearing from the very people that we're here for, right? Which is our athletes. And so that's just one part of the puzzle. You just mentioned, Lisa, how to get athletes more involved. Well, unified leadership is not the future, it's the here and now, right? That's something we need to be really working on. And we've accomplished that through two endeavors, actually three, which predates me. Mary Ellen Powers being hired as a full-time staff person here at Special Olympics, also happens to be an athlete, is not only a key advisor to me, but the entire team here at Special Olympics Rhode Island, the entire professional staff, and countless volunteers, coaches, and everybody else that come to Mary Ellen for thoughts, guidance, and perspective. The other parts of that puzzle are we launched a little over a year ago through Mary Ellen's leadership, our first ever athlete leadership university, which is training athletes to not only be leaders within their teams, but the larger Special Olympics community and their own lives. And I mentioned, I'll come back to that last part because it's a really important facet of what we're doing here in Rhode Island and Special Olympics worldwide. And then lastly, the other part that I'm the third leg of the stool, so to speak, that I'm really excited about is in December, we launched a mentor-mentee program between our Athlete Leadership Council and Board of Directors. We already have two athletes that are members of the Board of Directors. They are standing members and they have full voting rights and are just, they're another board member. However, we wanted to figure out how to get our Athlete Leadership Council and board to work in a unified approach. And Wisconsin was kind enough to share some ideas at a meeting this past year. And I'm a big believer in, steal as many great ideas as you possibly can and bring them back to your state. And so we launched a mentor-mentee program, but it's not the board members mentoring the athletes. It's the athletes mentoring the board members.
Mhm.
And the importance of that significance is that, when you join as a volunteer or as a board member, the foremost expert is not staff and or other volunteers. The foremost experts are athletes. And by empowering our athletes to help lead in conversations and introduce, by the way, board members to the movement, not only do I think symbolically it's really powerful, I think in the tangible evidence of how we make decisions and policy is created within our movement, that is also, if not even more powerful. And for our athletes to know that they're being empowered to be in this position, I think sets the tone of who we are as an organization. It goes back to the analogy, right? You both know about this, and maybe your listeners do as well. But the analogy for unified leadership in Special Olympics is the school dance,
Mhm.
right? There's people, you have the organizers of the dance, and they'll invite individuals with intellectual disabilities to come to the dance. That's step one. Step two is not only inviting them to the dance, but then asking them to dance. But the most important part of the puzzle is then asking them to help plan the dance.
Mhm.
And here in Special Olympics, Rhode Island, we are well on our way to accomplishing the third step in that analogy. And I'm very excited for the future of what that's going to look like, because I think it's going to not only help to us evolve and adapt, but really reach new heights as an organization.
And to that point, do you guys have any have you started doing athletes as coaches at all?
So we actually do organically. A few of our athletes have really stepped up, not only through their training in Athlete Leadership University, but also independently have offered and or volunteered to be a part of the leadership of their respective teams. So we actually have two athletes that are active assistant coaches within their respective teams. Lisa Grasso has to be one of them, and she also, is a recent graduate of Athlete Leadership University. So we are now talking about building out a major within ALU that provides that path or pipeline, where we want to refer to it as, in order to allow for more athletes to realize that opportunity. And I think that's a good one to think about, Lisa. And the reason I say this is because, as athletes join the movement, they do so at the beginning of their experience to, maybe compete, join a team, be with their friends. And as they mature over time, there's a point, I think, for anyone where you start to ask yourself, do I want to retire from being a quote unquote athlete and transition and being to being a mentor and or a leader to support other athletes that are coming into the movement? That happens in the NFL. That
Hmm.
happens in Major League Baseball. It happens in NHL. Happens in every other major sport. And the opportunity to facilitate that here within Special Olympics, again, I think is a part of the not only the future of the organization, but really is a part of the here and now.
Yeah, because that's what you'd like to do, right? You
Yeah,
want,
I'm working my way up to that,
yeah,
but I'm taking it step by step.
yeah. Because here, we're doing the same thing. We're gonna probably offer it next year, and then, because like you said,
I
what you've
wanna
done it, you want to give back or
I
whatever.
wanna get back it because I've been doing it since '79. So I wanna coach, but I wanna coach sports that I'm not doing anymore, like basketball or flag football, you
So,
know.
I and Kurt, I think that's great, because those athletes that are, maybe first time athletes or relatively newer athletes, they stand to gain a lot from learning from your personal experiences and how you navigated different aspects of joining a team or a sport for that matter. And what to anticipate going forward. It's like anyone, right? When you enter in a new occupation or a new club or whatever it is, that orientation, that mentorship is really important. I don't think it's a case of people haven't valued it here in Special Olympics. I think it's more so to do with, that unified leadership is, relatively speaking, still a new concept, even for Special Olympics. But I also think as I mentioned earlier, it's an exciting one, right? So people like yourself, and then here in Rhode Island, we have folks like Henry Moretti, who is a longtime, athlete. He's been doing it, just as long as you, Kurt, and has been around the world, has been a global messenger, met multiple sitting United States presidents, won countless medals. Um, I tell Henry all the time, we got to get him in front of as many athletes as possible, because,
Mhm.
having him be able to articulate what that's meant to him and his family and what it can do for others. I mean, I can't say that as well as he can.
See, what I like about it is that, and this is something that I never thought I'd be able to do, is actually meet the president of the United States and I actually got to do that.
Wow.
How
And
great is that?
Yeah.
got to shake his hand not once but three times, and
That's awesome.
got in a selfie with him, and he took the picture
Mhm.
from my phone.
Yeah.
So I thought that was
Great.
pretty cool. So
Yeah.
That's great.
So Ed, talking about athlete leadership and how it grows and stuff, how would you like to see Special Olympics grow over like the next 5 years?
Here in Rhode Island
Or
or
just
in
yeah, in your state and then just in general.
Yeah, so here Rhode Island, so I'll start with Rhode Island. For us, it's really about finding that I'll call it the sweet spot. And what I mean by that is, we right now our census for 2024 is about to wrap up, and if I was a betting man, and I'm not, but I'll say if I was a betting man, I would say we're probably going to be around 3,800 unique head count, which means individual athletes that we served over the course of the year. So we've been around that 4,000 athlete marker for some time, and we've been building back up to that, by the way, since COVID, because like everybody, we were around 4,000 athletes prior to COVID. COVID happened. Obviously, it impacted our community in a number of different ways, and still does to a large extent. And slowly but surely, a lot of those athletes were gaining the trust and confidence to come back. For a lot of different reasons, they had to withdraw or at least put their participation on hold. And many of them are back. Most of them are back, I would say. And so we've gotten to that point where we're starting to ask ourselves, what's that magic number, right? So if I could wave a magic wand and hire 10 more staff, is the answer 10,000 athletes? Is it 8,000 athletes? Is it 6,000 athletes? And we what I do know is we want to allow for any athlete, individual with intellectual disabilities in Rhode Island, to participate, that chooses to participate. But we have to do it in a way that is ensuring the quality that every athlete deserves, right? That I mentioned earlier, the exceptional experience. That is really important to me, and I know it's really important to our board here and to our staff members. So it's that sweet spot. You got to figure that out, and I don't think we're anywhere near quote unquote capping the number of athletes we serve, but making sure we can support that growth and do it in a way that's really intentional and strategic. And building out new opportunities for athletes. I mentioned ALU, Athlete Leadership University, among other programs that we're getting ready to kick off. This past year, we launched surfing for the first time ever. And in 2025, we're launching floorball, and I'm really excited about that because we're going to be doing it in partnership with our Providence Bruins, which is the affiliate to the Boston Bruins. And so, like baseball, they have their AAA, AA type of setup, and so we have all the rookies down here in Providence, but they're a lot of fun to work with, and we're excited again about that opportunity. So growth is really what we're focused on, and ensuring the continuity and exceptionalism that we're striving for every day for our athletes, and continuing to build on the success that has been our 57-year history here in the Ocean State. Nationally and worldwide, nationally, I think it really is about how do we do a better job through the use of technology and shared resources to empower state organizations to ensure that they can do, as I'm describing, achieve that growth and exceptionalism for the benefit of athletes. Because we look at Special Olympics North America and Special Olympics Inc. is really our partners in providing the programs that we do. But the fact is that the state organizations are the ones who are facilitating and coordinating all those programs, and then relying on our national partners and worldwide partners to help push resources out to athletes, in addition to facilitating and coordinating USA Games, World Games, and a lot of those national and worldwide endeavors. But that takes a lot of work. People like to think it's a matter of flipping a switch and you can turn around and have a brand new technology and or platform for everybody to use. Well, every state is not built the same. Every country is not built the same. So when you start, creating these things, you have to make sure you take all those factors into account. So I think we're still a ways away from leveraging, technology in a way that I think everybody would come to expect from Special Olympics. Part of that is because we're a nonprofit, right? We're a charity, so we're raising money on to keep operations going simultaneously as building these opportunities. So there's a balancing act there too. Um, and I think the more that we come together as a country, in the North American region, working with Canada and Mexico and other countries in this region that certainly are interested in either starting a program or growing their own programs, how we can work in partnership with each other. And on an international level, I could say that what Dr. Shriver is doing in conjunction with David Evangelista and other regional vice presidents and trying to expand programming is essential because what we saw in Berlin, Germany,
Mhm.
is to think that 57 years ago, there were some 3,000 athletes in Soldier Field, with Eunice Kennedy Shriver for the first, games of Special Olympics worldwide. And fast forward to 2023, and we're holding the games in Berlin, Germany, and there's 10,000 athletes and 350,000 plus spectators are coming out over the course of, 14 days to be a part of this event. I
Yeah,
mean,
that was a that was a
that's
cool that was a cool event.
Yeah.
I have to say to be part of it. I mean, I didn't get to watch any competition, but the part I did was a cool event. But you actually got to go because you got to
I
volunteer
got to
so
volunteer.
at the bocce event.
Mhm.
So yeah.
And now,
I
So
mean, Kurt, how great is that, right? I mean, you're a part of history.
yeah, I know.
so
But that's something that's something that I want to do is something I'm giving back. So I
yeah,
loved every minute of it.
yeah,
So
yeah. So yeah.
what are a couple of your biggest accomplishments since becoming CEO of Rhode Island?
Well, I touched on a few. We launched our Athlete Leadership University program. That would certainly be at the top of the list. And I'm incredibly grateful to Mary Ellen Powers for her leadership in getting that program off the ground, along with the entire team. Um, One of my favorite moments, by the way, will be the first graduation. When I look back on my career, will be the graduation of the first cohort from ALU here in Rhode Island. I made a decision going into that event that I wasn't going to have a written speech. I decided to go in and I was going to talk about every single graduate in that program and what I had an opportunity to witness in their own personal growth, both in the program and within Special Olympics. And that was a pretty cool moment because it's very personal, for the athletes and myself, but also for the families to hear about that. I think was really powerful moment, and the fact that I got to share in that celebration with all those athletes is will be always something I look fondly upon in my lifetime. Um, Other accomplishments, we've grown our fundraising apparatus here in Rhode Island and increased revenues since I joined the organization. When I first joined Rhode Island, we increased from we were about $1.8 million budget. We're at $2.5 million. So in 3 years, we've generated almost a little over $700,000 in additional funds to support program expansion. Hence why we're talking about adding programs here in the state. And thanks to people like Chris Hopkins and Denny DeJesus, Mike McGovern, and others, we're really taking it to a whole new level on the programmatic side because they made it our lives easier. When I came on board, it's kind of like you have the Corvette, and then you have to figure out how to soup up the Corvette, right, and make it better.
Mm, mm.
And I'm incredibly grateful to everybody who walked the halls of this organization throughout its history. So monetary speaking, that's a big accomplishment, but that has to be invested someplace. So what did we do with those funds? We hired additional UCS staff, Unified Champion Schools. We hired a state-sponsored director, which is focused on programs that are administered out of the state offices that athletes can enroll in individually as opposed to a team. And why we did that is we wanted to make sure that we had defined buckets of programs for athletes to navigate in a more user-friendly manner and for their parents and coaches and others to navigate. And so when you reach out to us, we have a clear path forward for you to enroll in those programs and someone who can help and facilitate that throughout every step of the way, which is really it comes down to customer service and the ability to serve athletes and as I mentioned already. So that's a big part of what we're doing is the athlete pipeline. And the other part that I'm particularly excited is the investments that we've made in volunteerism. We are really doubling down on being leveraging the curriculum that is for volunteers at Special Olympics, but taking it to a whole new level and making sure that we're looking at a volunteer's experience from the moment they make the decision to volunteer with us to the moment they step off the sidelines in helping to facilitate an athletic event or any other event for that matter within Special Olympics, make sure they come back, right? So it's about recruitment, education, training, retention, keeping them here, and then acknowledging them for their awesome contributions, right? I know we focus a lot on fundraising, right? Athletes first, mission, athletics, programming, and more often than not, the conversation goes right from there to fundraising. But I have to tell you, the thing that keeps me up at night is not fundraising; it's volunteers.
Mhm.
And so, I'm particularly proud of what we've done thus far. And we've not only maintained, but we've grown our volunteer numbers in a lot of areas as a result of the work that we're doing.
Well, that's good. Yeah, because I know here too, it's like depending upon the competition or whatever, or depending upon the type of event, some people either don't have the knowledge of, what, oh, Special Olympics is an all year round thing, they think it's just one time.
Yeah.
And also, they don't know how to get involved with it either. I think that's what some of the problem is too. But so what is
What is the biggest thing you have learned?
All the acronyms.
we have too many, right? Yeah.
um, yeah, I gotta tell you, when I first joined Kurt, and people throwing acronyms at me, I'm like, I have no idea what that is. You gotta help me. And I came from higher ed. There's a lot of acronyms in higher education and college. And so anyway, all kidding aside, uh, I don't know if it's so much learn as it is come to appreciate the movement that is Special Olympics. And what I mean by that is, I think all of us are looking for, when we talk about acceptance, respect, and inclusion, we're all looking for that sense of belonging, right? We all want to be a part of something and feel that acceptance and respect and that we are in fact being included, and that's everybody. It's human nature to want to belong to something that's bigger than any one person. And Special Olympics certainly is that bastion for a lot of people, millions of people across the globe. And I think what I've come to appreciate is this is one of the few areas where it doesn't matter your ethnicity, religion, political views. It doesn't matter, if you have a disability, you don't have a disability. This is one of the few places that those things are all set to the side, and the focus is on the very definition of why we have that sense of belonging, and that's humanity. Right? Empathy, compassion, and humanity cannot be things that we scratch from our vocabulary. They have to be very much ingrained in who we are as individuals and something that we value as people. And I've come to appreciate more and more how powerful and important Special Olympics is to so many different people. And again, our athletes at the center, but also how much it means to people that do not have intellectual or developmental disabilities. And that's a pretty powerful statement. And so I appreciate that. I don't take it for granted. And frankly, it's humbling and awesome to be a part of that and have responsibility for here in Rhode Island.
Yeah, I know that some of the people that we play unified volleyball, and some of the people that, that play with us, unified partners, it's like, they didn't even think, they enjoy it now. They didn't realize, oh,
Yeah.
it's fun that, and the fun to play, with us, but also they get a chance to know us and say, just because they have this doesn't mean, they're not that I can't hang out with them or I can't, enjoy them, enjoy their company or something. So that part I do like. So so as part of your job, you collaborate with other programs as well as being calls like we were on yesterday. How has that helped you be successful in your job?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I think similar to engaging with others here in the state, having the opportunity to engage with other state leaders and national and global leaders, really it provides perspective, right? That's number one, first and foremost. Shared resources, and when I say resources, I don't mean necessarily just monetary. I mean shared resources in the context of best ideas and practices. I mentioned earlier the mentor program that we started here in Rhode Island that was adapted based on what Wisconsin had done previously. Um, I think both those aspects have been really helpful to me. And I feel fortunate that not only am I president and CEO here in Rhode Island, but I'm also the chair of the Special Olympics New England Region Leadership Committee. And this past December, I was elected the secretary of the United States Leadership Committee. And most importantly, I'm on the United States Unified Leadership Committee. So I have all the acronyms. and and having the chance to share what we're doing here in Rhode Island and vice versa, other states, has been really invaluable. I encourage my entire team to reach out to their counterparts to in other states to gain context, perspective, and resources as well. And I think the more we could do that, the better for all of our programs.
And I think that just from like the sense of when I like meet with you guys, on the calls I have with you guys, I think I feel like you guys, not are just we're not tokenism roles. We're you guys want us to voice our opinions and you guys listen and take our opinions, which is helpful, because sometimes I feel like sometimes depending upon the situation, sometimes it is a, tokenism role and I think we're kind of getting away from that, which is a good thing. So
Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed that out, Lisa, because I think that's for me personally, it's always a concern of mine is to assess what opportunities we're contemplating going forward, because the last thing we want to do is have that type of patronizing or tokenism, as you described it, of athletes. It's it's easy for someone to say, we want an athlete to do X, but if that role or responsibility doesn't have really substance to it, what's the purpose behind that suggestion and or thought process? Is it just to check a box? Because if that's what it is, obviously, we shouldn't do it. But if it's to carve out a meaningful, as you described, role where not only we can hear opinions, but actually get some of the work done, I think is really invaluable. Again, we live it here every day with Mary Ellen.
mhm.
Uh, she's not just an athlete here on staff. She's a member of the team, right? So when we're making decisions, depending on what it is, it's really important for us to seek her guidance and thought process, because more times than not, there's things that we haven't thought of.
Right.
And that's really valuable, and it's really important to the decision making process.
Yeah, and like even when I was in Germany, I even told Tim Schreiber this too. I said, what I like is the fact that, ultimately, what I like about having our voices heard is that, ultimately all the decisions affect us as athletes, So, I'm glad that we're now having more of a voice because, in not had I think hearing from the athletes, you get the athlete's opinion, but you also point of view so that oh yeah, this will affect the athletes this way. So that kind of
Yep,
helped.
100%. You're spot on. Like we have to consider all aspects and ultimately how it impacts our athletes, good and bad.
Mm-hmm. No, you can ask this one when you're not working.
But when you're not working, what things do you like to do?
Spend time with my kids, uh, as and spend time with my wife, I should say too. Sorry, honey, I didn't mean to leave you out when she listens. Um, but I mentioned health and family is a number one priority. There's nothing I look forward to more at the end of the day than getting to see my kiddos and spend time with my wife Claudia.
Mhm.
When I'm not spending time with them and they're sick of dad, I'm either out going for a run, or I'm actually taking classes now at the University of Rhode Island for my master's program to finish that up. So when I'm not helping my son with flag football, being an Uber for my daughter, or spending quality time with my wife, I'm running or I'm doing classwork.
No, that's good.
Mhm.
What is one thing
What is one thing
people?
that people may not know about you?
Ooh, good question. Might not know about me. I mean, a fun factoid. I always like. I'm a big Marvel fan. My favorite superhero is Iron Man, Tony Stark.
Mm.
So that's one tidbit. I've done 5 marathons.
Mm.
I love to run. I used to, be very competitive. Now it's, for me, it's just staying recreational and keeping fit and exercise. And I guess I don't know, one other thing. I used to be, it's easy to Google. So I used to be in public office. I served in elected office from the age of 18 until I was almost 32. Before, while I was working full time, because most of the positions I held were part-time elected capacities. But yeah, I guess you could Google all those things for the most part. But yeah, those are some tidbits.
Yeah. Well, before we go, who would you like to see win in the Super Bowl this weekend?
Oh, neither. Is that an option? My son is a big Patrick Mahomes fan. I call him Mahomie as a nickname. So I guess I'll root for Patrick Mahomes, but I don't want him to win because I want to keep the dynasty that is the New England Patriots intact.
Mhm.
But I can't root for the Eagles. You know,
Right, right.
it's a coin toss for me. I'll watch just because it's entertaining. But I'll secretly be rooting against both teams.
Right. No, I get that. I get that. Yeah, yeah. Especially like with us, it's like since the Bears aren't in it, I think we'll do the same thing.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
yeah. So well, thank you so much for talking to us today. We really did appreciate it. That wraps up another episode of Amazing Individuals. We hope you've enjoyed our show today. Before we go, we would like to remind everyone that you can listen or watch more great episodes wherever you listen to our podcast, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel. And
Lisa and I would look forward to bringing you more episodes. And remember that people with intellectual disabilities can accomplish whatever they want with the right supports.